Nigeria's 2027 presidential debate has taken another sharp turn, and this time, the argument over a Muslim ticket has moved from political calculations to the personal household of President Bola Tinubu. Kwankwaso, the Nigerian Democratic Congress presidential running mate, has responded to Islamic cleric Sheikh Sani Yahaya Jingir after the cleric renewed his call for Muslims to support another Muslim presidential ticket in 2027.
Ba akwai Kiristoci ba, ba akwai Yahudawa ba, ba akwai masu bautar magiro ba. Ni musulmi mai wazin musulunci da nace Muslim mai na taba nasu.
Kwankwaso's response was striking, humorous, and politically pointed. He suggested that even President Tinubu himself practices a Muslim-Christian arrangement inside his own home. The controversy began after Sheikh Sani Yahaya Jingir spoke in Kano about the 2027 presidential election. Jingir reaffirmed his support for the Muslim ticket that brought President Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima to power in 2023. The cleric said he was prepared to continue supporting the arrangement and encourage Muslims to support another Muslim ticket in the next presidential election. Yahaya did not present the issue as merely a political strategy. He framed it in explicitly religious terms, saying that he was among those raising the flag of Islam and calling on people to support another Muslim ticket. He also acknowledged that such comments would upset Christians, but questioned what, in his view, Muslims would have taken away from Christians by supporting candidates of the same faith. Those remarks immediately reignited one of Nigeria's most sensitive political debates. The Muslim ticket has remained deeply controversial since the 2023 presidential election, with supporters arguing that competence and political representation should take precedence over religious pairing, while critics maintain that Nigeria's religious diversity makes balanced representation particularly important at the presidential level. Kwankwaso's response came during an interview with DCL Hausa, where he took a different approach to the question of religious balance. Rather than directly attacking the concept of Muslim candidates, he pointed to what he described as Tinubu's record of balancing religious representation during his political career, particularly during his time as governor of Lagos State.
San gaya maka cewar wannan takara a guna ba ta mutu ko a rai ba ce. Yau na samu wani wanda nake ganin ya fi ni darajar iya yin aikin, ba mamaki in ban masa ni a rayuwata ba abin da zan ce da Allah sai godiya. Na samu rayuwa mai kyau kuma na yin rayuwa mai kyau, kuma a guna zama mataimakin shugaban ƙasa ko ma shugaban ƙasar sabis ne, taimako ne ga ka ba da gudunmuwa, kuma wannan gudunmuwa shi sa ma ni na shiga cikin harkar siyasa.
According to Kwankwaso, Tinubu demonstrated a preference for political balance when selecting his deputies in Lagos. He argued that during Tinubu's tenure as governor, his deputies were Christians, despite Tinubu himself being Muslim. Kwankwaso therefore presented Tinubu as a politician who, in his assessment, understands the importance of balancing religious interests. But then came the line that has attracted the greatest attention. Kwankwaso said Tinubu practices a Muslim-Christian ticket even in his own home, referring to the president and his wife, First Lady Oluremi Tinubu.
Ina gaya maka babu wani wanda zai zo daga Plateau ko daga Enugu ko daga Kano ya gaya wa ɗan Najeriya wane ne Ahmed Bola Tinubu a harkar mulkin Najeriya. Kowa ya sani, kuma shi ma ya sani, amma daidai abin da yake kasa ita harkar siyasa harka ce ta samu, saboda haka da yawa mutane za su iya zubar da mutuncinsu ma akan ɗan abin da bai taka kara ya karya ba.
In his words, Tinubu practices a Muslim-Christian ticket in the other room. The remark was clearly intended as a political response to the argument that presidential tickets should be determined along religious lines, and it has quickly become one of the most discussed elements of the exchange. But behind the humor lies a much bigger political argument. What exactly should determine Nigeria's presidential ticket in 2027? Should political parties deliberately balance Muslim and Christian representation? Should voters focus primarily on competence, policies, and governance? Or does Nigeria's religious diversity make a balanced ticket necessary to reassure citizens that no major religious community is being excluded from national leadership? These questions are becoming increasingly important as political parties and potential candidates begin positioning themselves ahead of 2027. Nigeria is a country of enormous religious diversity, with Muslims and Christians forming the two largest religious communities. In many parts of the country, religious identity overlaps with regional and ethnic politics, making presidential elections especially sensitive. The 2023 Muslim-Muslim ticket was therefore not simply viewed as a choice of running mate. For many Nigerians, it became a test of how political parties intended to represent the country's different communities. Supporters of the arrangement argue that Nigeria's constitution does not require a Muslim-Christian ticket and that political parties should be free to select candidates based on electoral strategy and competence. They also pointed to the fact that the Tinubu-Shettima ticket won the 2023 election as evidence that voters could accept the arrangement. Critics, however, have continued to argue that political representation is not only about constitutional requirements. They say Nigeria's history of religious tension makes symbolism important, and that deliberately balancing the ticket can help build confidence among different communities. Kwankwaso's intervention introduces another layer to the debate because he is himself a major political figure and a former presidential candidate. His political alignment ahead of 2027 means his comments are likely to be treated as merely casual commentary. They are part of a broader context over how opposition forces will challenge the ruling political establishment and how religious representation will feature in the next election. There is also an important distinction between Tinubu's personal family and a presidential ticket. A marriage between a Muslim and a Christian is a private family arrangement, while a presidential ticket is a constitutional and political structure governing a nation of more than 200 million people. Kwankwaso's comparison is therefore rhetorical rather than a literal equivalence between family life and national political representation. And that distinction matters because the 2027 debate will ultimately be decided by voters, political parties, and Nigeria's electoral system, not by clerics or individual politicians alone. Sheikh, Jingir, is entitled to advocate for the political position he supports, just as Kwankwaso is entitled to challenge it. But the intensity surrounding their exchange demonstrates how quickly religious identity can become a central political issue in Nigeria. As 2027 approaches, Nigerians are likely to hear many more arguments about religion, competence, regional balance, political alliances, and the future direction of the country. The real test will be whether these debates produce serious discussions about governance or whether religious identity becomes the dominant battlefield of another election. For now, Jingir is defending the Muslim ticket, while Kwankwaso is challenging that argument with a pointed reference to President Tinubu's own family and political history. What began as a debate over a presidential ticket has now become another chapter in Nigeria's increasingly intense 2027 political conversation. For more updates, stay with us on News Express. I am Cassie Tony.